These are the most controversial decisions in football history, and trust me, they get more controversial as you watch. But let's start from that goal from the Manchester derby. Man City were leading at Old Trafford in this Premier League clash in January 2023, and it was looking like they were going to cruise to a win until the most bizarre decision gave United a way back in. The ball was passed to Rashford when he was in an offside position, and despite not touching the ball, he was in custody of it. So, when Bruno came and slotted the ball in the back of the net, the goal should have been ruled out for offside, but somehow it stood. It was such a controversial decision, and it looked even worse because the linesman initially had his flag up for offside. But after the referee went to him and they had a conversation, the decision changed and the goal stood. That day, the entire footballing universe wished we could hear what the referees say to each other while these decisions are being made. And we finally got our wish in the Spurs vs Liverpool game in the 2023-24 season, but it was not at all what we were expecting. Luis Diaz scored a very clear goal, but it was ruled out for offside. VAR images and, frankly, the naked eye showed Diaz to be comfortably onside. But a disgraceful miscommunication between the referees led to the goal being disallowed. It was bad enough watching it live, but when the official audio was released, it turned out to be much worse. That controversial decision ended up being even more consequential because Spurs ended up winning that game in the 96th minute. If Diaz's goal was allowed to stand when the game was 0-0, that game would have taken on a whole different complexion. And that wasn't even the first time Liverpool have been on the receiving end of a controversial decision in the Premier League. In the 2021-22 season, they missed out on a possible second league title in 3 years because of a controversial decision in the game between Manchester City and Everton. In that game, we saw Rodri handle the ball in his own box, but somehow VAR determined that there was nothing wrong with that. If the referee had done the right thing and awarded Everton a penalty, a lot could have changed, considering City ended up winning the league by just 1 point that season. If Everton had converted that penalty, City would have dropped 2 points and Liverpool would have won the league. And that means that City would currently not be celebrating a historic Premier League three-peat right now. These decisions might seem little at the time, but most times they end up having huge consequences. Just like when Frank Lampard was wrongly denied a clear goal at the 2010 World Cup. It was the round of 16 between England and Germany. The Three Lions started out poorly, going 2 goals down in 32 minutes, but they were determined to get back into the game before half-time. Upson drew 1 back in the 37th minute, and that was quickly followed by a strike from Lampard to equalise for England. Or so they thought. The ball bounced under the crossbar and crossed the line. We didn't even need replay to tell us it was a goal. It was just so obvious. Lampard ran off to celebrate, the fans were elated, and the coaching staff were delighted, only to find out that the referee didn't even blow. Huh? That was a very clear goal, but the referee denied England their equaliser. And guess what? Germany ended up winning the game 4-1 and knocking England out of the World Cup. That hurt so badly. That controversial decision forced FIFA to strongly consider introducing technology to help referees make better decisions. And 2 years later, goal line technology was introduced. That was a ridiculous decision, but it was certainly not as ridiculous as when Gianni Sakatva blew for full time not once but twice before the clock hit 90 minutes in a 2021 AFCON game between Mali and Tunisia. With Mali enjoying a slender 1-0 lead over Tunisia, the referee brought the game to a premature end in the 85th minute. After bewildered protests, he resumed the game only to blow for full time once again in the 89th minute. The whole world was confused. Was the referee concussed? Where was he hurrying to? Was he paid? Too many questions. 25 minutes later, the players were called back out to finish the game. The Tunisians refused to come back out. Honestly, I would have done the same. Like I said at the beginning, these decisions only get more controversial as we go on. So now let's go back to 2017, when we saw 2 huge controversial goals in the UEFA Champions League quarter-finals between Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. Ronaldo scored a hat-trick in that game, and 2 of the goals were scored from an offside position. And it wasn't even tight, they were clear offsides, but the referee chose to turn a blind eye, and those controversial goals were enough to send Madrid to the semi-final of the tournament. The fact that they eventually won the competition that year makes the decision even more consequential. If the referee got those calls right, there just may have never been a three-peat for Real Madrid. Another unexplainable decision from a ref in a big game was Graham Poll giving Croatia's Josip Šimunić 3 yellow cards in one game. This happened at the 2006 World Cup in a game between Croatia and Australia. Šimunić got his first booking in the 61st minute and the second in the 90th minute, but the red card did not come out. It was not until the Croatian defender pushed the referee after full time that Poll showed Šimunić his third yellow and finally a red. Graham Poll confessed to having sleepless nights after that huge gaffe, and he retired from international football after that tournament. But here's a controversy that's even bigger than that one. Thierry Henry's handball, which led to a goal in the second leg of the 2010 World Cup qualifier between France and Ireland. France won the first leg 1-0, but Ireland was leading in the second leg 1-0 after full time. The game went to extra time and Ireland had the momentum they needed to slay the Giants. But with 2 minutes left in the first half of extra time, Thierry Henry handled the ball, crossed it, and Gala scored. The ball was literally on its way out for an Ireland goal kick until Henry handled the ball. The Ireland players saw the handball in real time and protested vehemently, but their protests fell on deaf ears, and that controversial decision was enough to deny Ireland a place at the 2010 World Cup. Speaking of controversial handballs, Lionel Messi has one of his own. This one came in a keenly fought Barcelona derby between FC Barcelona and Espanyol back in 2007. Messi pushed the ball into the net with his hand, and the referee let the goal stand. The Espanyol players immediately surrounded the ref and the linesman, absolutely sure of what they had seen, but it changed nothing. The goal stood. And the way Messi scored the goal, you could tell he had been watching a certain former Argentina captain. Perhaps the most controversial decision in football history came in the 1986 World Cup between Argentina and England. Diego Maradona opened the scoring with one of the most famous goals in World Cup history, converting with his hand. The English players protested, but nothing was done about it. After the game, Maradona was asked if he scored it illegally, and he replied that he scored a little with the head of Maradona and a little with the hand of God. And that's exactly why we call that goal the hand of God to date. Thanks to that controversial decision, Argentina knocked England out and went on to win the World Cup. Again, these controversial decisions have huge consequences. Are there any controversial decisions I missed? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.